A Great Deal of Power, also known as Boomerang, by Eric Frank Russell. Originally published in the August-September issue of Fantastic Universe magazine and republished in two more magazines, the December 1954 issue of Nebula Science Fiction and the December 1978 issue of Sirius. Anthology appearances include Science Fiction Thinking Machines in 1954, Invasion of the Robots in 1965, a French one in 1974, Friends, Robots, Countrymen in 1990, and The Wizards of Odd in 1996. It also appeared in one Italian collection of the author's stories in 2001. Read by Darrell T. Smith II from my channel Quasar Spectra. A Great Deal of Power, or Boomerang. Wormser, fat, balding, with eyes like marble, gloated over William Smith, smacked his lips, and said, "There you are, complete, tried and tested, a soldier of the Sixth Reich." "With 1,000 to follow," added Speidel, "or 10,000, or 1,000,000. He was tall, thin, angular, and looked like a hungry vulture. The third man in the room, Kluge, crop-headed, with heavy jowls and the cold, authoritative stare of a high-ranking officer, observed harshly, "It would be better not to count one's conquests before one has made them." He favored William Smith with an expression of mixed disapproval and doubt. "We have first to discover whether this civilian-styled dummy is as efficient as you claim." "Want to bet?" asked Speidel. "I am not interested in profiting by failures," Kluge told him stiffly. "I am concerned only with successes." "You'll see," Wormser told him. He turned, snapped at William Smith. "Stand up!" William Smith stood up. He was of medium height, handsome, 30-ish, well-groomed, and looked intelligent. "Your name?" "William Smith." "Your purpose?" "To destroy power at the direction of my masters." Kluge lowered his brows and demanded, "How?" "I shall request each nominee to surrender power voluntarily. If he refuses, he dies." "How?" persisted Kluge. "I create within him the desire to die, and he nourishes it to the very end." "You hate power?" prompted Wormser. "I hate power," confirmed William Smith, his complete lack of emphasis somehow lending force to his words. Kluge complained to Speidel, "It is about this that I have some misgivings. I have gone to the trouble of reading several authorities upon hypnosis. All say the same. A man cannot be compelled to do anything against his natural inclinations, anything which infringes upon his moral code." "That is true of hypnosis." Speidel grinned, exposing his teeth. "This faculty of his is not hypnosis. Don't ask me what else it is, because we don't know. It is something we stumbled upon by accident and developed." "Complete mental mastery," suggested Wormser. "And it works." He paused, went on. "Certain Eastern mystics can and occasionally do will themselves into nirvana, or, in other words, death. Usually it takes several days. No autopsy reveals a William Smith. He can make every organic cause." He gestured toward Victim Go One Better. "We know. We've tried him out on a couple of handy deadbeats. They expired within hours, minutes," he chuckled flatly, "of natural causes." "A dim-witted guinea pig is one thing," opined Kluge, unimpressed. "A strong-willed man is another. In time of war, any kind of war, one has to overcome strong-willed opposition. He can do it. said Speidel, betraying not a shadow of doubt. He can fight a war so cunningly that the enemy won't even know it has started. The days of map battles are through, contributed Wormser with a touch of malice. No more throwing of masses of pawns against other masses of pawns. This is 21st century super chess. We leave the pawns undisturbed while we snatch away the big pieces one by one. They just vanish from the board of natural causes. I know the proposed technique. Kluge waved an impatient hand. After all, I had a share in devising it. The fact that our methods will be radically different from any employed in the past does not make the war any the less a military operation. I view it from that aspect. Therefore, I am duly cautious. No more careful than we. Speidel handed him a list. See for yourself. This is his first short list of victims. All are strong-willed men possessed of considerable personal power. Do you notice anything peculiar about them? None are key members of the opposition, said Kluge, examining the list. Therefore, the opposition will not smell danger before our first real test is completed, Speidel pointed out. Not being affected by it, they won't be interested, won't be suspicious. Indeed, all these powerful men have so little to do with the enemy military machine that their preliminary passing will serve only to confuse the issue when we do get started in earnest. I approve. Kluge gave him back the sheet of paper. You have exercised your imagination. I compliment you on it. Thank you, Colonel General. Speidel was openly gratified. He passed the list to William Smith. Deal with these. Pocketing the list, William Smith picked up his hat. His clear-cut features were impassive. He might have been a young suburban husband casually going out to mail a letter. Watching him, Wormser said, You have all your papers and passports. I have them. And you can think? I can think. On no account will you return before completion of your task. I shall not return, agreed William Smith evenly. And in a grave emergency, the last resort, I shall press the red button which is set in my chest and thus destroy myself. His hand moved to his jacket. Don't touch it here, yelped Wormser, involuntarily backing away fast. Don't touch it at all unless there is positively no other way out. Jumpy, aren't you? Said Speidel. The red button isn't set that delicately. I wouldn't give him 10 minutes if it were. Believe me, it takes some pressing. That may be, said Wormser, but a hand like his is pretty heavy, and you can't judge his touch by yours or mine. He shuddered, licked dry lips, said to William Smith, You may go. Putting on his hat, William Smith departed without a word. The trio in the room watched in silence until the door closed behind him. A long minute later, Wormser heaved a sigh of relief. Kluge remarked, You can make ingenious soldiers of plastics and metals, you and Speidel. You would not shine as soldiers yourselves. What of it? The cannon fodder days have gone. Humph! Kluge's air was that of one accommodating himself to a vastly changed present while still hankering for the past. Old-style wars were easier to handle. They embodied established and familiar rules. Newton P. Fisher heaved his ample bulk out of the limousine, puffed his hanging chops. His slightly protruding eyes were cold as they observed the meek, well-dressed young man waiting nearby. No comment, he growled. Beat it. Scram. But, Mr. Fisher, please allow nothing. Newton P. Fisher glowered at him. I've been taken many a ride by you reporters. Now it's your turn. Skip back to your garbage dump. Look, Mr. Fisher, my name is Smith, William Smith. His words came swiftly, trying to hold the other while something in his eyes burned steadily through. If only you would permit me a minute of your time. Pawson. Fisher turned to the blue-jawed, burly man who followed him out of the car. This thing smells. Do something about it. He jerked his jacket straight with a defiant pull at the lapels, marched pompously into the building. The eyes followed him all the way. Folding thick arms across his big chest, Pawson stared belligerently at the frustrated interviewer, noted that the other was not fazed. Now, began Pawson, what's the idea of chivying the boss? Mr. Fisher has much power. You bet he has, agreed Pawson. So what? He must give it up. Yeah? To whom? To you? Heaven forbid, said William Smith fervently. I couldn't dream of such a thing. Neither could Fisher, assured Pawson. He made shooting motions. All right, Nutsky. On your way. But skedad, insisted Pawson. Go someplace else and brood, and wish the boss dead if you want. I have already done so. Tipping his hat slightly, William Smith walked away, impassive, unhurried, peculiarly self-confident. Watching him go, Pawson threw a grin at the chauffeur, put a hairy finger to his forehead, and made screwing motions. The chauffeur grinned back. He didn't hand out any pamphlets. Saves me tearing them up. Pawson strolled toward the building, into which Fisher had disappeared. Stick around, Lou. The boss won't be long. He went through the door. Leaning on the wheel, the chauffeur picked his teeth, mooned up the street, pondered about crazy folk in general and the recent sample in particular. The sample was now out of sight. Pawson reappeared 3 or 4 minutes later. He emerged from the doorway at a cumbersome run. Reaching the car, he braced himself against its near-side door while he panted for breath. His eyes were searching the street. His features seemed molded in stale dough. After a while, he wheezed, "Christmas!" "Something wrong?" asked the chauffeur. "Not much." Pawson sucked in another lungful. "Only the boss just curled up his toes for keeps." There was nothing about this Brussels office to suggest that Raoul Lefavre was the biggest man in Belgium and one of the 40 biggest in the world. Neither was there anything outstanding in appearance about Lefavre himself. Slight, dapper, dark, he would pass anywhere as the normal nondescript component of a crowd. "Sit down, Mr. Smith." His English was perfect. "So you had contact with the late Newton P. Fisher. His end was a great shock. It upset quite a lot of things." "It was intended to," said William Smith. "Many of them may not be readjusted for months, perhaps years, and—" He perked up, gave his caller a sharp look. "What was that remark you just made?" "It was intended to." "Just what do you mean by that?" "The Fisherless chaos was created." Leaning forward, elbows on desk, Lefavre said slowly and deliberately, "Press reports make no suggestion that Fisher's death was engineered. Are you asserting that he was murdered?" "Executed," corrected William Smith. Studying him carefully, Lefavre asked, "Who sent you to tell me about this?" "I have come more or less automatically." "Why?" "Because you are next on the list." "Next?" Lefavre was puzzled. "On what list? Whose list?" "Mine." "Let me get this straight. Are you trying to warn me that you have obtained from somewhere a roster of persons who are fated for death? That Fisher was first on that list and that I am second?" "Precisely," agreed William Smith, his eyes burning strangely at the other. though you may save yourself by voluntarily surrendering all your considerable influence." "Who says so?" demanded Lefavre. "I do." "Ah!" Standing up, his expression pained, Lefavre pressed a wall stud. "I perceive that you have gained an interview under false pretenses. You are not connected with Fisher in any way. You are merely another crank. I have long been the target of cranks. In my position, it is inevitable." He turned to the one who had answered his call. "Emile, please show Mr. Smith out. See that he does not return." "There will be no necessity," William Smith assured. "My purpose has been served." He went out, accompanied by the silent Emile and conscious of the other's grim stare behind him. Crossing the road, he found a bench in the tiny gardens facing Lefavre's office, sat there gazing steadily at the second-floor window. Now and again his attention moved off to follow the Visivox wires, as if speculating what unhearable, unseeable stirrings might be running within them. But always his gaze returned to the window. 1 hour and 14 minutes later, a long, silvery automobile slid up to the main door. A bearded man got out. Bearing a small black case, he hustled through the front door. Still, William Smith watched the window and the wires. After a while, someone pulled curtains across the window. William Smith did not bother to wait until the death wagon arrived. Ignace Tatarescu smoothed his black, skin-tight uniform, adjusted the black and gold ribbon of a jeweled order around his neck, carefully centered its sparkling cross in line with his triple row of brag rags. "This Smith does not offer himself at a convenient time," he grumbled to his valet. "However, he is well introduced, and I suppose I had better afford him a few minutes." He studied himself in a full-length mirror. "Always I am affording a few minutes for someone. Where would the world be if I had not enough minutes?" "It is a problem, Excellency." "Oh, well, show him in. Have the small table set with brandied coffee and sweetmeats." He paraded to his favorite spot by the fireplace, struck his favorite pose, and held it until his visitor entered. "Mr. Smith?" "Yes, Your Excellency." "Please be seated." Lowering himself into an ornate chair, Tatarescu ran finger and thumb along the creases of his colorful pants. "Why have you sought this interview, Mr. Smith?" "You are strong." "Of course." Tatarescu preened himself. "The world needs strong men, therefore I am strong." "Too strong," said William Smith, looking at him steadily without blinking. "What a diplomat!" laughed Tatarescu. "He gains an interview and promptly uses it to criticize my position, for which, permit me to tell you, young man, I have fought long and hard." "More's the pity," remarked William Smith. "Eh? What do you mean?" "It will be so much the more difficult for you to give it up." "I have not the slightest intention of giving it up." "When Tatarescu gives up, Tatarescu will be dead." "You said it," William Smith stated. The other scowled. It was a much-practiced expression. "If that is a threat, bear in mind that we are not as alone as we seem. One overt move on your part will mark your end." He raised his voice, called toward the door. "Escort Mr. Smith to the main gates." Then to his visitor, "The interview is over. You will never be granted another one by me." "No," agreed William Smith, still looking at him. "Of course not." Choosing that moment to gaze straight into those queer orbs, Tatarescu saw in them an elusive something that should not have been there, something of pinhead size and far back, something supernally brilliant, Intense, compelling, irresistible. It seemed to be twisting his own brain into a new and unwanted path. He came erect, rising like one in a dream. His voice, when it came, was low and hoarse. "Never, never!" He shouted it. "We shall see." William Smith bowed from the waist, backed toward the frowning guards now waiting inside the door, permitted them to conduct him away. He left the room full of silence. Once outside the palace, he climbed the path to the crest of an overlooking hill, squatted cross-legged at the top. There he brooded over the ornate edifice until dusk approached, and lights began to twinkle in the neighboring city. He was still there, waiting in the darkness, when bells of the city's churches tolled monotonously and the loudspeakers of the civic address system boomed their news through streets and avenues. "Al Marechal Murte! Tatarescu is no more!" Behind the slums of Tangier, at the desert end of the street of the Ouled Nail, lay the Sharia Ahmed Hassan, a long, dark, dirty alley through which William Smith carefully picked his way. Counting the low doors set in the massive wall at one side, he reached the one he wanted, pulled its dangling bell cord, waited patiently. Soon a thin-featured Arab appeared, took his card. He heard the other's slippers shuffling away through the night shadows of the courtyard, and a distant low mutter of "A Jawar!" Many minutes crawled past before the Arab returned, beckoned to him, led him through the courtyard, through numberless passages, and into a deeply carpeted room. There he paused to view the old, white-bearded man facing him across a low octagonal table. The old man had a beak nose, roomy but crafty eyes, kept his hands hidden in his capacious sleeves. "I am William Smith." The oldster nodded, said in a rasping voice, "So your card says." "You are Abu Ben Said es Haruma?" "I am. What of it?" "According to my list, you are to be requested to return to the obscurity whence you came." "Indeed, you are amazingly candid." Abu Ben Said drew a hand from a sleeve, used it to stroke his beard. "In my long years, I have been the subject of surprising suggestions and many highly imaginative threats. Nevertheless, as you cannot help but perceive, I am very far from dead." "Not far," corrected William Smith. "Nearer than you think." Abu Ben Said sighed resignedly and smote a gong by his side. "The moon is full. It is always at such a time that Hakim the cobbler becomes queer in the head. Goodbye, Mr. Smith." 3 servants came in at the run. William Smith stood staring until Abu said impatiently to the servants, "I am heavy with the burden of years, and he tires me. Take him away." He lay back exhaustedly to prove it. He was an easy mark. William Smith got back into the lane. The courtyard door clanged shut. The bell cord hung limp, unstirring in the night air. Leaning against the facing wall, hands deep in his pockets, he waited until after 40 minutes a terrible keening arose from the house. "Aye! Aye!" Beneath the veiled moon, he strolled away. A certain Salvador de Marella of Cartagena was the last name on this brief experimental list of guinea pigs. Salvador was not sharp like Lefebvre, nor ruthless like Tatarescu, nor cunning as Abu Ben Said. He was the supreme opportunist, with more than his share of luck, and he enjoyed the delusion that it would never run out. Salvador had all the jovial humor of the really successful gambler. He interviewed William Smith and laughed and laughed and laughed, and laughed himself to death. All three were there waiting, Wurmser, Speidel, and Kluge, when William Smith came back. The first two were gleeful, triumphant, the last one stolid. They had not needed to bide their instrument's personal account of his adventures. The radio and the video already had told them enough. William Smith came quietly in, hung up his hat, stood in the middle of the room. It was as if standing were to him a natural, lifelong pose. As became an automaton, he never sat unless asked or ordered. "Perfect!" declared Speidel, rubbing satisfied hands together and looking at Kluge. "Perfect, even to the prompt and obedient return. A boomerang that comes right back so that we can use it again and again. Does this cure your skepticism?" "Nothing will ever cure my skepticism," said Kluge. "For instance, it would be a great improvement if he could deal effectively with his victims without the necessity of meeting them face to face and indulging in futile argument." "Impossible! He must make close mental contact for a minimum period to implant a delayed death desire. There is no way of doing it remotely. If there were, we would not need him at all." I know, said Kluge. "Therefore I shall concede that you have created a weapon of value." "You bet we have," Wurmser endorsed, "and it has functioned precisely as designed." "Of sufficient worth," Kluge continued, ignoring him, "to justify my bringing it to the attention of the proper authorities. It should no longer be a secret among ourselves." "Secrecy will still be necessary," Speidel pointed out. "I'm not an imbecile," Klug retorted irritably. "Neither are the authorities imbeciles. The task of multiplying and directing this new robotic weapon will be conducted efficiently and with circumspection." To divert the other's manifest annoyance, Speidel turned to William Smith and said, "Do you hear that? There is to be an army of Smiths." William Smith spoke, his tones as flat and unemotional as ever. "You enabled me to think. Therefore I have been thinking." "So?" prompted Speidel. "You also conditioned me to have an intense revulsion for personal power. So I hate power." "Quite right, too," agreed Speidel, throwing the others an amused wink. "Through me, you have power," remarked William Smith. Speidel and Wurmser stiffened. Kluge squared his shoulders. "The conclusion is obvious and unavoidable," William Smith went on. "I have reached it because you made me what I am, so you must be destroyed." Wurmser shuffled backward, talking in high squeaks. "You cannot give us the death desire. We foresaw that risk and conditioned you against it. You can project your will only where instructed by us. You must obey and project it only where instructed. Understand?" William Smith spoke with terrifying lack of morbidity. "I understand. I know, too, that you could take me to pieces as easily as you put me together." Again his eyes went over them. "But that would not destroy your power because it is hidden in the inventiveness of your minds. You could soon make 1,000 exactly like me." "Where's a blaster?" Speidel tensed, looking searchingly around the room. "He has no instinct of self-preservation and would let me burn him down where he stands, like the dummy he is. Has anyone got a blaster?" Kluge shook his head, continued to watch William Smith. "Yet I cannot give you the death compulsion." William Smith mused, neither pleased nor grieved about it. "It is forbidden. My circuits embody a block which prevents me doing what is necessary. Anyway, I would not impose it upon you." Why not? Inquired Kluge. Because that would leave me possessed of power. I would stand alone, full of this aptitude which I have been conditioned to destroy. You're in quite a fix, aren't you? Suggested Kluge. You're all tangled up in cockeyed logic, added Speidel. He has a gaunt and hungry look, quoted Wurmser, absorbing fresh courage from the others. Such men are dangerous, reminded Kluge, erect as on parade. William Smith murmured more to himself than to his hearers. This impasse is more apparent than real because the solution is easy. It was built into me. It is the conditioned escape and the logical ending. His hand poised above his chest. This is an emergency. No! Screamed Wurmser. No! He flapped his hands with sheer horror. Speidel ran for the door. Kluge stayed put, frozen-eyed, unmoving. No! Screamed Wurmser. The hand smacked the chest right over the concealed red button. The resulting explosion wrecked an entire street, sent a huge column of pulverized brickwork cloud high. Behind that button had lurked a great deal of power. You've been listening to pre-1990s speculative fiction readings with a highlight on science fiction by Darrell T. Smith II. Please consider clicking the donation link in the description box. Thank you so much for your time and your imagination.